Okay, before we start, in order to begin ports, you need one of the following level 90s. So I tried to focus this video just on the basics of ports, but if there's something that you're interested in that this video doesn't go over, I'd recommend looking at CAG's ports guide on the Runescape forums. The link is in the description. So if it's your first time going into ports, you're going to need to use the portal, which is located here in Port Sarim, where my mouse is hovering.
Here I am at the portal in Port Sarim. As you enter for the first time, there's going to be a short cutscene, and then right after, there's going to be a little tutorial where it goes over some of the basics. You should read that tutorial before you continue in the guide.
This window is where you send out all your ships out on missions, and you can view it at any time, not just in ports. If you look at your captain's log, this is the currently selected voyage. It shows the estimated difficulty, the rewards, and a button in the top right to reroll for a different one. Underneath where it says ship, it shows all of your currently unlocked ships and the status of them, and you can cycle through them by clicking on them. Underneath this section where it says adversity, it shows the duration of the voyage, the requirements to succeed the voyage, which will be some value of the morale, combat, or seafaring. It'll be 1, 2, or 3 will be required. So clicking on edit crew here in the voyage window, or alternatively clicking on crew roster at the top whenever you're in ports, will let you see your crew and captain window. In this window on the left, you can see all of your currently hired crew, with the currently selected crew members stats seen below. Real quick, red crew members will typically respond with combat, while blue will respond with seafaring, and green with morale. Other crew members might have multiple stats or give more rewards on completed missions, but for the most part, stick with the single stat crew members, but more on that later. Here you can see all your hired captains, which you can only have one of on each mission as opposed to 5 of the crew members, except they're practically the same as crew otherwise, although they do have some specific abilities that affect the total ship's stats, like 1% bonuses. On the right here, it shows all of the crew you can hire today, with 15 daily crew showing up. It shows the cost of the crew and all of its stats and abilities. Always hire the crew that correspond with your best port good, and don't bother hiring old crew. You can also hire captains here, but the only way to tell the level of the captains is by the chimes, so hire the ones that cost more chimes, because they'll be better.
So your ship's going to be another way to add more morale, seafaring, combat, and speed to your voyages. So these 5 circles here will correspond to different deck items. Up here, 2 of them, ram or figurehead, hull, and different rudder that you can choose from, each of which will have different options you can choose from. And you should upgrade these as you can. One thing to note on this screen is I would always have this hide obsolete ship parts button clicked. So assuming you've been doing ports for a little bit and you've noticed yourself failing a few missions, you might be wondering where you're going wrong. So I'm just going to go over a few things that might be helpful for sending more successful missions. So first off is how you spend your resources. So instead of focusing on upgrading the different buildings that are around ports, you should focus really on buying the most recent crew that pops up every time. So whenever you get to a new region, you should buy um, the standard guys, the green, blue, and red for that region, and upgrade your current wise. And then that brings me to the second point. For your crew composition, you should try to stay away from the guys that go and give multiple things. The solidarity guys, the ones here, there's a few different other ones that have this bonus. They're not bad, but for the most part, sticking with these guys is more consistent, and it's easier to progress between regions because from each region, the stats that these guys give, like this region, it gives all four a little bit, but other regions, it gives two stats. I think a couple give three, maybe. Um, so you should just kind of focus on the single stat guys. Okay, I switched over accounts here to explain something about voyages with an account that's a little earlier on in ports. So when you're picking voyages, I would recommend choosing ones that have just one or two different things. Adversity, like this one requires three, this one requires two. I recommend choosing the ones with just one or two. They're a little bit easier to do. If you have the guys I was talking about earlier that have the solidarity skill, um, they can help a little bit, but it's a little bit easier, especially when you're first starting, to manage the one with one or two. So I'm just going to go through quickly. This one is two. This ship gives 74%, so I'm going to go on this one because it's a little bit closer. It looks like they're not using any of the um, standard crew. They're just only using two of the standard crew as opposed to all five. So I'm going to take this Overseer and these two Exploding Golems and swap them for the standard red and green guys that give combat and morale. So I'll do a morale guy, and then a morale guy, and then a combat person, and another combat person. And now here we are. We've got 3 morales and 2 combats, and you see we've got 75 and 90, pretty similar to before. In fact, you could actually do a little bit better, I believe, if you use this Solidarity guy. It's going to be up like 85, but for example, we're just going to use the standards. Then you'll want to go into your ship and try and break the difference. So it's a 15% difference here. So um, first off, make sure that all of these are giving either morale or combat. So morale, morale, combat focused, and then this is a seafaring focus. So we're just going to switch this over to a combat, um, and that gives it up to 83. So if we had, well, this would improve it, but this is probably about the best we're going to get. So we're just going to send that, and then with the other ship, it's already got one because it's a single. It's a combat. So if you look at the ship, we've got a captain. That's a combat focus. We've actually only got 3 combat guys. And you see we have 2 of the previous region guys. So in this instance, I would upgrade the crew before sending the ship and getting 2 of these. So then these guys can start leveling up, because as you get farther on in ports, the amount you need to level them up to get as good as the previous crew gets more and more. So you want to start using the next level crew as quick as possible, because you're going to be at the regions. These earlier ones, it's only like 10 to 20 sends, and so it's only going to be a couple days. You can get through them, like, honestly, the first 2 regions in less than 2 or 3 days. So, but later on, it's going to take like up to a month to get to a new region. So you want to start using the new crew and get them up to like level 8 by the time you're getting to the next region. Whereas right now, you're probably only going to get these guys up to like level 5 or 6 by the time you're switching region, even if you go as quick as possible. But it's still the most efficient way to improve your chance of sending successful voyages.
Why do ports? What can you get out of it? Mostly combat related equipment, specifically scrimshots, which gives combat and skilling buffs. A note, you could buy lesser scrimshaws beforehand on the Grand Exchange, but going through ports, you can craft the superior ones. There's also Tier 85 combat gear of all the styles with weapons, and there is level 99 cooking food um, that you can already buy, so it's not a huge deal. And long term, in short, I would do ports for the AFK GP you can gain. I mean, it doesn't take very long, like 5 minutes to do ports once you figure it out. And then for the superior scrimshaws, which are useful at basically all levels.
So there's definitely more to learn about ports. I tried to focus this video on just the basics, everything that you would need when you're first starting out. I didn't go over four of these buttons up here: the shipyard, archipelago map, the port management or upgrade buildings. I didn't go over this tab over here. I didn't really go over the captain's log, so there's definitely more to learn. Um, but this should get you started. If you want to learn more, you should start using ports now. It's a long mini game. It's going to take months to finish. And if you want to read more, I would check out Cag's guide again. It's got a lot there. He's basically, that's where most of the source for this video came from. And then I'm going to use a more advanced guide where I go over some of the late game stuff, which will come out in about a week if you're just now watching it. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that you get started with ports now, because it's going to be a few months before you can get to some of the end game content.